It's been on lesson 55. In his own words, the Talmud states, Abishua said, I used to be a grave digger. Once I chased after 8 sweet deer into the holiest, into the holiest, thigh bone of a dead man. After chasing it for 3 parsa, I had not caught up with the deer, nor had I reached the end of the thigh bone. When I turned back, they told me that belonged to King Og of Bashan. Number 1, no, it is impossible to witness the downfall of the wicked, other than by way of the power of the land of Israel. As sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. The Yamin right corresponds to the land of Israel, as in Benjamin, Benjamin, a son of the right, since he was born in the land of Israel, as brought in Rashi in Genesis. Number 2, in order to draw the power of the land of Israel, even now in exile, when it is under the dominion of the realm of evil, and its holiness is unable to be manifested, though nevertheless its holiness can be manifested even in this bitter exile, as in so gamam zois, even thus in their enemies' land, meaning that even in the bitter exile it is possible to manifest gam zois, zois being an allusion to the divine presence. The way to draw the holiness of the land of Israel is through an illumination of the light of the merit of the forefathers, as stated in the Zohar. Wherever the forefathers are, the Shekhinah, divine presence, is there. As in, I will remember the covenant with Jacob, and I will remember the land, meaning that when the light of the merit of the forefathers is illuminated, the holiness of the land of Israel is manifested. Then not only is one rescued from the wicked person, but one also witnesses the wicked person being befallen by what the wicked person had wanted to witness befalling him. Number 3, this is because the wicked draw the evil eye upon their enemies, as in not only that, but he sees befalling his enemies. But a person can be spared from this evil eye by way of advocating merit for the wicked person. For even God advocates merit for the wicked person in order to save the tzaddik from the wicked person's evil eye. This is the meaning of what our sages said. Not only that, but he is vindicated in judgment, as said, your judgments are far removed from him. Though through this vindication in judgment, that merit, that merit is advocated on his behalf. The tzaddik is spared from the wicked one's evil eye. This is because in order to eliminate strictness in judgment, there must be a manifestation of the hand, as in, my hand will hold on to judgment, so that it is not meted out upon the wicked one. And when God's hand is manifested, this creates shade in which the tzaddik can conceal himself from the poison of the evil eye, as in, I covered you in the shade of my hand. This is because in this bitter exile the eyes of the wicked are polished like a shining mirror, and the poison of their eyes see to the distance, as in they will look on and stare at me on account of the shade. Although the light of their eyes is dimmed, and their poison is unable to cause harm, the light of the eyes of the tzaddikim, though, is very little, as in, who is blind like my servant. However, through the shade, the light of their eyes is strengthened, as is the case with those with weak eyesight, who are unable to see well when the light is strong and great, but need shade in order for them to see. This is the meaning of the wicked one watches after the tzaddik and seeks to kill him, that is, with his evil eye, but God will not abandon him in his hand, in other words, by way of the manifestation of God's hand. And how is God's hand manifested? By way of, he will not declare him guilty when he is judged, as in, my hand will hold on to judgment, as in, your judgments are far removed. This causes the light of the wicked one's eyes to be dimmed, as in they err in vision, which is caused by they stumble in judgment. representing judgment specifically, in that he is vindicated in judgment, thus causing the air and vision for the light of his eyes is dimmed. And by way of the shade, the light of the tzaddik's eyes is strengthened, and he is able to see afar, as in, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. And he sees and perceives God's righteousness, and is able to know and understand that God is righteous. Even when the wicked one has been vindicated, even though this does not seem right, he sees that God's vindicating the wicked in judgment is indeed God's righteousness. For I will not vindicate a wicked one, which is the meaning of I lift up my eyes to the mountains, representing God's righteousness, as in your righteousness is like exalted mountains, despite your judgments being sunken in the deep. Number 4, with the strengthening of the tzaddik's vision, by way of his seeing God's righteousness, his faith is strengthened, and he is able to pray. For the crookedness of his heart prior to his seeing God's righteousness has been straightened. His witnessing God's righteous acts straightens the crookedness of his heart, as in your righteousness to the upright of heart. Initially his heart had been distorted from full faith in God, for it had appeared to him that God had distorted judgment. Now, though that he has witnessed God's righteousness, his heart is strengthened out in full faith, so that he is able to encourage himself and pray for his needs. This is because prayer is essentially an expression of faith. That one has faith that everything is under God's control. That one has faith that everything is under God's control, even to override nature, and that God does not deprive anyone of his due, for God is righteous. This is alluded to in I will praise you with an upright heart. An upright heart, which is an aspect of faith, brings about the aspect of prayer. This corresponds to the red cow, as stated in the Zohar, a cow that receives from a shor ox. A cow corresponds to prayer, as in, we will offer our lips in place of cows. Receiving from a shore represents looking, as in, ashirenu, I see it but not soon. For by way of the concept of I lift up my eyes to the mountains, the aspect of prayer comes about. This is aduma tmime, perfectly red. Although red refers to the decree of judgment, Temima alludes to a short term, harmless ox, the moderate judgment. As stated there in the Zohar, that is, one sees that God weakens the power of judgment, as in my hand holds on to judgment. That no yoke came upon it. This refers to the faithful of Israel. Also there in the Zohar, this represents the strengthening of faith, corresponding to prayer, which comes about by way of the strengthening of vision, as in your righteousness to the upright of heart. Number 5, this corresponds to the dust and ashes mentioned in connection with the cow. Prayer requires dust and ashes, for one must subdue the evil, both personal and general, under the dominion of good, as in, you will tread upon the wicked, for they will be ashes underneath the soles of your feet. This represents the ashes in prayer. The foot corresponding to prayer, as in, my foot stood. Personal evil refers to the materiality and grossness of one's body. This must be completely silenced during prayer, as did the early Hasidim, who completely detached themselves from the material world during prayer. General evil refers to the prayers of Jewish sinners with whom one is praying. One must eradicate their evil and transform this evil into a vessel for holiness. That is, one must bind everything in oneself to the souls, spirits, and higher souls of the deceased, arousing them with one's prayer to pray on our behalf. as in be aroused and sing, O dwellers of the dust. This is let him place his mouth in the dust, meaning that one should bind one's speech to the dwellers of the dust. And this is the meaning of Abraham's prayer, behold, I have begun to speak to God, and I am dust and ashes. For this is essential for prayer. This is referred to as tefillah b'tzibur, public prayer. The letter hers, tzibur, being the acronym of tzaddikim, righteous, beinonim, average, and rishoim, wicked. Beinoni is the one praying. As our sages said, one should always look upon oneself as possessing an equal amount of merits and offenses. Tzaddikim correspond to dust and rishoim correspond to ashes. Now, rousing those who dwell in the dust applies both on the individual and general levels. For the individual, these are the parts of his soul / spirit / higher soul that have already been reincarnated and rectified. In general, these are the soul / spirit / higher soul of others who dwell in the dust, rousing them to pray with a person. This is the concept of all the sevens connected with the cow. All of its rituals are in sevens as brought, 7 washings, 7 priests, etc. This corresponds to prayer as in I praised you 7 times a day. Number 6. One must also rectify the 3 sounds with one's prayer. The sound of a fool is in a multitude of words. The sound of a song do I hear, and all day long my humiliation is before me. At the sound of the reveler and the blasphemer. This corresponds to cedar wood, hyssop, and crimson. Dye and crimson in dyed wood. Mentioned and dye and crimson in crimson dyed wool mentioned regarding the cow. The cedar wood corresponds to the sound of a fool is in a multitude of words, in a multitude of erroneous practices and beliefs, which represent the way of the Amorites. For a fool will believe anything, literally any word, which corresponds to the cedar, as in I destroyed the Amorites, whose height was as tall as cedars. Tall people are indeed usually fools, for due to their tall height, the oxygen that rises from the heart to the mind to oxygenate the mind, to allow for the creation of thoughts, is dissipated along the long path from the heart to the mind, caused by their tall height, and the arriving oxygen is thus insufficient to allow them to come up with intelligent thoughts. This is why tall people are fools. This corresponds to the ways of the Amorites, who have no intelligence, since their height was as tall as cedars. For this reason they believe many erroneous beliefs. Short people, on the other hand, well utilize their oxygen to come up with intelligent thoughts. However, since their intelligence is greater than their good deeds, as in anyone who's in wisdom is greater than his actions, when the intelligent thoughts returns to their hearts are unable to contain the intelligence. For the main strength of the heart is through good deeds. Thus, they are in the category of acquiring wisdom without a heart, on account of which acquiring wisdom without a heart, on account of which the intelligence makes them sin. These are the philosophers who lack a good and pure heart, and are not in the category of I stored your words in my heart so that I not sin against you. And as a result of this intelligence, they are a major cause of others to sin. Furthermore, they are in the category of hyssop that emerges from a wall. Hyssop corresponds to short people who, despite their intelligence, are unable to contain the power of intelligence within their hearts, for their hearts are weak and lacking, especially the sexually immoral, who delve into the wisdom of philosophy, are greatly harmed by this wisdom, since their hearts are lacking, as in one who commits adultery with a woman lacks a heart. So this is a hyssop that emerges from a wall, referring to the walls of the heart, since the intelligence emerges through the walls of the heart, because the heart is unable to contain the intelligence within it, as in I stored in my heart. This corresponds to the sound of song do I hear, referring to the sound of reveling and blaspheming, for they use their wisdom to blaspheme God, as known about them. The verse says, do not be too clever, do not be too clever. The crimson dyed wool corresponds to the third type of sound, the humiliations and vilifications that a person receives from his enemies. As a yin all day long, my humiliation is before me, and the shame on my face has covered me at the sound of the reveler and the blasphemer. This corresponds to the telas, crimson worm, as in I am a telas worm and not a man, disgraced by men and scorned by people. These three types correspond to the slaughter, the burning, and the collecting. Connected with the cow, slaughter corresponds to the eradication of the belief of fools. As in the slaughter of seforim, literally the wayward, but the same letters as shoitim, fools, went deep. Burning corresponds to the strengthening of the heart, that it be able to contain the words of wisdom within it, as in my heart is warmed within me. For since the intelligent words are held within the heart is warmed. For intelligence is like a contained fire, which is represented by the burning of the red cow. Finally, collecting corresponds to the eradication of humiliation by enemies, as in God has collected my disgrace, which is a nullification of the third sound. Number 7, all this should one rectify with one's prayers, elevating those who have fallen into erroneous beliefs, raising them with one's prayer to true faith, which is prayer, and implanting perfect faith in their hearts, but rectifying the hearts of the intellectuals of philosophy, so that their hearts are able to contain their intelligence, and it not cause them to sin, as in I stored in my heart, is accomplished by way of the focused attention of the heart during prayer, transforming all the humiliations and disgraces into honor. For when a person stands in the palace of the king and utterly surrenders himself, not being aware of anything besides the king, were he to hear some disgrace or humiliation, he would interpret the disgrace and humiliation as being meant as an honor for the king. For how could someone enter the king's palace and humiliate the king? Certainly then the words are words of praise. And one reflects upon how the words can be interpreted and rearranged so that the king will be honored by them. But one would certainly not consider that perhaps the disgrace is referring to him, for who is he? Has one not surrendered one's very being, so that only the king's presence alone is experienced? This is in his palace. Everything declares glory. All statements must be arranged so that they give rise to glory. Now during prayer one is standing in the king's palace, as in, O Hashem, open my lips. Oh, Al-Dalin open my lips. Al-Dalin corresponding to Heichal, the palace, numerically equivalent. Thus one must transform all humiliations into letter combinations, glorifying the king. On number 8, and now, through proper prayer, the light of the forefathers' merit shines, as in the merit of the forefathers was roused. This is accomplished by way of proper prayer, for the merit of the forefathers was through Moses. Prayed with arousal through prayer. Then when the forefathers are present, the Shekhinah corresponding to Chale, corresponding to Gamzois, which represents Chale, which requires a minimum measure of Mem Gimel 43 eggs, is present. This is an aspect of the inheritance of the land of Israel. For this mitzvah was commanded to be fulfilled immediately, as written, when you eat of the bread of the land. You shall set aside a truma. You shall set aside a truma, sublime gift from the first kneading. Of those you shall set aside challah as a sublime gift. For wherever the forefathers are, the Shekhinah, which corresponds to challah, to the land of Israel, is present. And then through the aspect of the land of Israel, not only is one spared from the evil eye of the wicked, but one also witnesses befalling the wicked what the wicked had desired to witness befalling him. So while until now their hearts' fantasies were surpassed, for they attained more than what they desired, for they attained more than what they desired now, by way of chal prayer of the forefathers, merit being chal aroused. For now, for wherever they attain more than what they desire now by way of chal prayer of the forefathers' merit. So while until now their hearts' fantasies were surpassed, for they attained more than what they desired, now by way of chal prayer of the forefathers, merit being chal aroused of chal truma of the land of Israel, their hearts become a heart sickened by drawn out anticipation. This is the meaning of hope to God and observe darchoi. And observe darko, his path, which represents the rectification of prayer, of drichas, the drawing of a bow, which corresponds to prayer. These are the three colors of the rainbow, which correspond to the shining light of the forefathers. Through this, he will elevate you to inherit the land, representing the land of Israel, through which you will witness the destruction of the wicked. You will witness the destruction of the wicked as in sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. And this is the meaning of dwell in the land and nurture faith, by way of faith which is prayer. One attains the aspect of the land of Israel. Number 9, but now, not everyone is able to rectify these sounds with one's prayer. Sometimes these sounds in one's prayer come from such great wicked people that anyone trying to stand up to them is endangering himself. In this case, a great prayer is required, like Moses' prayer. But even Moses feared King Og of Bashan, for Og's grip was near the right side, which corresponds to the land of Israel, until God said to Moses, don't fear him, for Moses felt my right hand, Aaron has departed, as brought in the Zohar. Now Og's grip was on the right side, because he was a member of Abraham's household, and his land is adjacent to the land of Israel, for which reason Moses feared inciting him, and all the more so should all other people. Thus one must search oneself carefully and understand where the grip of the wicked person's root is, to see if one is able to incite and destroy him. And this is the meaning of what Abba Shoel said. I used to be a gravedigger, that is, he devoted himself to witnessing the destruction of the wicked who are called dead, even when alive. I once chased a tzvi deer, for the downfall of the wicked is mainly accomplished by inheriting the land of Israel, by drawing the sanctity of the land of Israel, as in sit at my right hand, the land of Israel being called, it is tzvi most coveted of all the lands. I answered into the kules, thigh bone of a dead man, meaning that he wanted to rectify the koiloi sound. I chased after him for 3 parsa, a reference to prayer for the 3 daily prayers, by way of which the light of the 3 forefathers, who represent the legs of the throne, shines, in order to draw the light of the land of Israel, which is represented by its tzvi/deer asset. I had not caught up with the tzvi, nor had I reached the end of the koilis. He did not attain the aspect of the land of Israel, of eliminating the sounds when I turned back, that is, when I finished my prayers, at which time one takes 3 steps backwards. They told me that it belonged to King Oigaboshin, and no one can rectify these sounds, for his grip is on the right side. Even Moses feared him, until God promised him, do not fear him, as brought in the Zohar. For this reason a wicked person like Oig is called a refugee, as written, a refugee arrived, which refers to Oig, for he wanted that Abraham would be killed so that he could take sorrow. This is an aspect of the wicked one looks out for the tzaddik. This is Abraham, but God will not abandon him into his hand, as in, my hand holds on to justice. God withheld justice from Oig a long time, until Moses' time, for which reason he is called a refugee, as in, I will escape my justice for eternity, for he was rescued from justice for such a long time. In this way the tzaddikim who do good merit God's countenance prior to the eradication of the wicked. God's countenance was concealed and hidden behind evildoers in order to destroy them, as in, God's countenance is against the wicked in order to destroy them. Now though, as soon as we see the elimination of the wicked, God's countenance is immediately to doers of good. This is Tamid, always seek his countenance. For through Tamid, which represents the land of Israel, as in, the eyes of God, your Lord, are Tamid upon the land. Through the land of Israel one will merit finding God's countenance, for through the land of Israel one merits witnessing the elimination of the wicked. This corresponds to the incorporation of the angel San Oi Samachnin Dalid Lame Yeyid within the angel of Matat, within the angel Matat, the minister of the countenance, the incorporation of the world of action within the world of formation. By way of the repetition of the verse, every neshama soul, with every single neshima breath, one must praise God. This is because the evil eye causes the breath to double, as we see empirically, that when there is an evil eye upon a person, he yawns and opens his mouth to take in a double breath, and when the breath is doubled, the praise must also be doubled, specifically praising God for rescuing one from this evil eye and for one's witnessing the elimination of the wicked. This corresponds to Matat, the minister of the countenance, shining into the world of action, meaning that the doers of good merit God's countenance by the elimination of the evil eye that caused a doubling of the breath. Until here are the rebbe's own words. By the elimination of the evil eye, it caused a doubling of the breath. It caused a doubling of the breath. Till here are the rebbe's own words. Lesson number 56 on the day of the first fruit offering. When you bring a meal offering from the new who grant to God on your festival of Shavuos, you shall have a mikra kodesh convocation of to holiness. You shall do no work of mundane needs. In every Jew there is an aspect of malchus royalty. Each one according to his level possesses an aspect of royalty. One person may rule in his home, while another may have a greater realm of dominion. And then there is one who rules the entire world, each one according to the level of royalty that he possesses is in officers of thousands, officers of hundreds, officers of 50s, and officers of tens. Nachman, 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 meuman.